Hey traders, how are you? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. Today we're going to be doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. Lot to go by. There was something I did a video on the Spanish side. I have to start doing more videos on the English side, but there's something that happened on Thursday that is fundamentally going to change the status and also the preeminence of the US and the US dollar. It's very, very serious. I'm kind of going to skim it in this video that I do here, but I think it's super, super serious because literally foreigners just didn't want to buy our debt anymore. And they had to spike the interest rate in order to actually do that. And that's actually what caused the crash in the market. I'm going to explain that to you as well, because I always love to do these videos to be able to go ahead and explain to you how everything works, right? That's why I kind of do these for free. I've been in the industry almost 20 years now. It's been a good ride. So Monday the market was mixed. The NASDAQ and the S&P 500 posted their biggest one-day decline since February on Monday. Remember that we are in February, since March. Not since February, because we're in February. So, started off great. Other than that, markets on Tuesday were mixed. Investors started to sell off a lot of the overpriced technology stocks, in addition to the expensive valuations for a lot of these companies as well, ahead of the Fed Chairman Powell actually speaking in regards to changing the monetary policy. Wednesday, the market ended higher because he actually stated that there's not going to be a change. So free money for everybody, let everything keep going up. And remember, the reason why they're doing this, they inject money into the system to make the asset values go up. Who does the asset values benefit? Well, you and I, which may not have billions of dollars, you and I have our pension accounts, right? Our retirements, which are going to be taken away from you in a few years, by the way. I'll do a video about that if you guys want as well. But the stock market is higher. Pension funds are going. Our real estate, our houses are going up. The equity in our houses, we can refinance. We feel rich. So 2/3, roughly, just over 2/3 of the economy in the United States is based on consumer spending. So you feel rich, you go out and spend money, and it moves the economy. But the only problem with that is that most of the people that actually benefit are the super rich. That's why we're having a situation now where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, essentially, right? Just to keep that in mind. So the market went higher because, if they're not going to change anything, they're just going to keep slushing money around. That means that everything's going to keep going up, supposedly, even though I do expect the crash to happen very soon. The crash was on Thursday, and basically what happens was the United States government tried to issue $62 billion worth of 7-year notes. I try to keep the jargon a little bit less technical for you guys, but basically they tried to sell 7-year debt, right? So they just wanted to, borrow me money, I'll pay you in 7 years. That's basically what it means. Now, the demand for this item, for this product, this what's called a treasury note, collapsed. Literally, foreigners just didn't want to buy our debt. And this is a big problem. Why? Because we're running deficits from here until the kingdom come. And so if foreigners don't want to let us borrow our debt, where are we going to get this money from? Because we have to get the money from somewhere to pay our bills, right? And the debt is exploding. So the situation now is that they had to literally explode the interest rate. They just had to skyrocket it to the upside to get people interested in actually giving the debt, because people just don't want the debt anymore. So there's a realization now, the flip has switched, that maybe we're not going to get paid back. Maybe the full honor of the U.S. government isn't as good as it used to be, backed by the U.S. government. So people are onto the shtick now. So now what's going to have to happen is the government is going to have to literally monetize itself, where they literally just create money out of thin air and buy their own debt. Remember, if you guys don't know, this is actually what happened in the Roman Empire. A silver coin, they started mixing in with other metals like nickel, and a silver coin wasn't actually a silver coin. So now we're literally just this bloated system that can't afford itself, and we're literally just going to start eating ourselves from the inside, because now that the interest rate went up, right, they had to jack the interest rate up to get people even interested, because nobody was interested, right? So The interest rate went up. Now everybody that's in the stock market says, oh, whoa, that might be a good deal. They start taking their money, taking their profits and taking their money out of stocks and things in the market in general, right? And then they put it in the bonds. So that's why the market collapsed so far, right? So then the interest rates go up. There's more demand for the dollar. The value of the dollar goes up. And then what happens to commodities like gold, oil, wheat, sugar, silver, all that actually goes down. That's what happened. But the biggest thing here is, if nobody wants our debt, how are we going to pay for everything? And if we start just literally buying our own debt and continuing to do the stimulus, just to give you a little summary. 2008, 2009 crisis, right? Bush younger had to do $5-6 billion. That's when the debt started skyrocketing. Then Obama came in, and in 8 years, he added more debt to the federal debt than any other president in the history of the United States combined. In 8 years. It was about, if I remember the number correctly, roughly $8.6 billion. Roughly. Give or take a billion or two. So then Trump comes in 4 years, he adds almost the same amount of debt that Obama did in 8. Right? This is why I always tell you guys, and I always try to keep these videos non-political, right? Because I think we're all tired of the political stuff. But it's not the left or the right. It's just government in general. So then Trump comes in. He adds more debt than Obama did in 4 years. I believe it was about 7.6, 7.9 billion. And now Biden, in 30 days, approved the $1.9 trillion stimulus, which is 24% of what Trump did in debt. In 30 days, 24%. So you see where this is going. So if nobody wants to borrow us money, then we have to just create our own money. When we create our own money, then the value of the dollar goes down, and then this is going to start to accelerate, and now everybody's afraid that inflation is going to hit. I'll do a bit of a video that's a little bit more in depth. I spent literally a few minutes, a little bit more than I wanted to on this, but this is really serious. Like, this is literally the end of the U.S. empire, the end of the U.S. dollar, because once the dollar goes, we're done. I think they're doing it on purpose, right? Government coin. Buy the government coin. Other than that, the S&P 500 had one of their worst days in a long time. S&P 500 went down 2.5%, whereas the NASDAQ went down 3.52%. Friday mostly down, even though the NASDAQ finished positive. And for the week, the Dow went down 1.81%. The S&P 500 went down 2.5%. NASDAQ went down 5.17%. The MSCI All-Country World Index, which tracks the majority of the important exchanges around the world, is about 49 countries, went down 0.85%. And then the European markets were mostly lower. The Euronext was 2.82% negative, the biggest loser of them all. If you consider Russia part of Europe, they actually were a little bit more negative. Africa and the Middle East, Africa went down by 2%, whereas Egypt went up by 2.08%. And then in Latin America, the markets were mixed. The Bovespa went down by over 7.6%. And then other than that, the Canadian markets went down 1.81% as well. Asia and the Far East, Hong Kong, the biggest loser there at 5.55% negative. And then Bitcoin got walloped again. We had Bill Gates also make some comments about Bitcoin. The Monday, however, was the biggest important day due to the fact that Elon Musk said that Bitcoin is going up too high too quickly, and it went down 17%. Tuesday, it went down another 15%. Biggest slide since March of 2020, set for the worst weekly slide in almost a year amid the major market sell-off. And for the week, it went down 18.66% to just under 47,500. In addition to that as well, Bill Gates said that he wasn't short Bitcoin, but only the rich people should own it. That's basically what he said.
General thought would be that, if you have less money than Elon, you should probably watch out.
This guy's turned into such a douchebag. Put a comment there if you agree. And by the way, I don't think that he's become the major farm owner in the United States just by chance. I think there's something going on there. In commodities, the commodities rose to the highest price in the last 8 years amid strong investor demand. Hedge funds are also piling into some of the largest bull wagers in the asset class in a decade. So remember what I always tell you guys when I do this video. Don't pay attention to what they say, right? Warren Buffett called gold nothing, a rock, basically, right? But he invested in a gold miner. You see what I mean? So don't pay attention to what they say. Meanwhile, Chase was saying you shouldn't buy precious metals. They have a vault where they're filling it up with physical silver. Don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do, right? So let's kind of just summarize here for a second. Nobody wants to buy our debt, which means that inflation is coming. And then on top of that, we have a situation where hedge funds now are piling into commodities. Well, why would they pile into commodities? Well, if the interest rate goes up, inflation is coming. That means that the price of commodities is going to start to go up. See how I put two together? Other than that, crude went up 3.81% in the U.S., $61.50. International crude called Brent went up 5.11% to $66.13. And oil is up almost 70% since the election, which is a record in the modern era. Copper is also close to hitting a 10-year high due to a fundamental supply and demand imbalance. Obviously, we have a situation where a lot of the supply chains are broken due to the situation with the COVID, right? People going home, people not working as much. And now, obviously, things are growing more than before because we don't have as many lockdowns and things are starting to recover somewhat. Other than that, precious metals for the week, gold went down 2.82%, silver went down 2.08%, and in finance and banking news, for over 3 decades, London has been the unrivaled king of finance in Europe and one of the most important financial centers in the world. Has been in the traditional role for the British capital in the 19th and 20th centuries, meaning the last 100 to 200 years or so. They've handled billions of dollars, trillions of dollars. A majority of Forex activity actually goes through London and New York. But now, a lot of that trading has actually vanished because after they left the European Union, a lot of people are starting to go to places like Amsterdam, Paris, and particularly Frankfurt. Frankfurt is like the New York of Germany. Remember, Germany is the 4th largest economy in the world, still the largest and most important economy in Europe. A U.S. Senate parliamentarian rules that the proposed hike to a minimum wage of $15 an hour could not be dropped in the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill, of which 6% is going to you and I. 6% of the $1.9 trillion goes to you and I. That's it. Everything else is just sprinkle it on. More money, sprinkle it on top. Other than that, it's still urging Congress to move quickly for the Pass America Rescue Plan, but we can just send some missile to Syria, no problem. Friday, the world's financial leaders, G20, agreed to maintain the expansionary policies to help economies affected by the COVID-19 crisis. In addition to that, they're committed to using a more multilateral approach to a coronavirus and economic crisis. I think they're doing it on purpose. This is complete conspiracy theory, right? This is conspiracy theory. I'm gonna do a new series. Conspiracy theory. Marcello is here. I think they're gonna bring down the current system to put in the world government and institute the government coin, the world coin, the world money. That's what I think about that. Other than that, the EU likely to waive limits for borrowing again in 2022. Even Germany, which has been very fiscally prudent, is going along with it as well. That's why I think they're kind of doing it on purpose, because they need to we need to be in a crisis so they can be, hey, well, what about this government coin over here? Other than that, in political news, over 30 House Democrats asking Biden to reconsider and recounsel his authority over the launch of the nuclear weapons. There's no indication yet that Biden is going to decline. There's no indication that it is yet due to Biden's supposed declining mental capacities, but the effort is being opposed by Republicans due to the fact that they don't want to weaken the power of the commander-in-chief. Biden's administration is also considering canceling the armed deals with Saudi Arabia because of the human rights violations, but China and Russia is okay. China and Iran, I should say. Their violations let's not talk about those. So he's thinking about actually only selling them defensive weapons in the future, and he's going to reassess the relationship with the kingdom now that he basically, with the declassification of the documents that he did, the prince is essentially, they're stating, responsible for the murder of the journalist Khashoggi. In economic news, the U.S. initial claims for unemployment went down by 111,000 at the end of the week of February 20th. It's the lowest level since November. We've had a recovery of 12.3 million of the 22.2 million jobs lost since the pandemic started, even though it's not expected to return until the level of employment we had in before the pandemic until 2024. U.S. consumer spending rebounded. It exploded 2.4% as personal income shot up by 10%, although this is being attributed more to the stimulus and the money that we're getting from the government. So just to kind of frame this for you, okay? Government taxes its citizens. That's where it gets its money from. So the government in the U.S. is continuing to just slush money out with a deficit. And now we have a situation where the foreigners just don't want our money anymore. They don't want to borrow us money. So where are we going to get the money to continue giving it to the citizens, to spend the money to continue the economy going? Do you understand? Are you following me? It's just complete. I mean, this is not going to end well. Not going to end well. Colombia's unemployment rate in the urban centers is 19.5% in January. It exploded from 12.9% last year. I mentioned that number one because you guys know that I love Colombia. I've been there for a while. And, even though things are tough in the U.S., they couldn't be worse because Colombia's in a heap of trouble. Corporate news, shares of Tesla have been up 325% for the last 12 months, but it has officially gone negative for the year. With this crash that we had this week, we had a weekly loss of over 15%, worst market since September for them. In addition to that, Gamestop, round 2, fight. The fight with the hedge funds against the Redditors is on again as GameStop closed 104% higher on Wednesday. Thursday it went up again 85%. And in 2021, it's up 477%. And year over year, it's up 2,920%. Another investment better than Bitcoin. Don't tell anybody. Etsy, American e-commerce website, which focuses on handmade or vintage items, they went up as well on Friday, 11.48% due to the fact that their revenue soared by almost 130%. And an Argentinian laboratory has struck a deal to produce the Sputnik V, Russia's COVID-19 vaccine in technology. It helped to boost the firm's shares price. And also, they're going to receive 1.2 million doses since they're one of the first in the region to go ahead and request to actually receive the vaccines. A note about the vaccines. If you are going to get one, I would highly recommend that you get the newly approved Johnson & Johnson vaccine due to the fact that it's not one of the new genetic mRNA vaccines from Pfizer and AstraZeneca. So if you want to go out and get it, protect yourself from the COVID, you, do what's best for you. But I would highly recommend that you get a vaccine that has the technology from before rather than a new technology that we don't know exactly how it works. In investment news, AT&T has officially decided to spin off DirecTV to a private firm called TPG Capital. It's a private equity firm. AT&T is still going to own 70% of the common equity while TPG is going to go 30%, and AT&T is expected to gain about $7.8 billion from the transaction. Best Buy is going to lay off 5,000 workers in February as they plan to close more stores in 2021. They expect 40% of their sales to come from online when before 2 years ago it was only at 19.2%. In addition to that, Best Buy has about 102,000 employees. Hyundai has a huge recall for the batteries in their electric vehicles. This is the most expensive recall in car history. They're going to actually have to pay $900 million in total, roughly $11,000 per car to fix the batteries because they had a situation where 15 reports of fires in the cars. Beyond Meat has inked a new deal with McDonald's and also Yum Brands, which includes KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut, to be able to bring new plant-based items to fast food menus. And in international events, the U.S., it took Biden 36 days to go ahead and start a new war and invade in another country. Thursday, they launched attacks in Syria, supposedly to strike back against the Iranian government attacking the rocket attack against the U.S. earlier this month. And declassified report, as I mentioned to you earlier, basically says that the killing of the journalist, the U.S.-based journalist that was against the royal family in Saudi Arabia, Khashoggi, basically said that he was responsible for the killing. So now there's a situation where the Biden is going to recalibrate the relations with Saudi Arabia, as I mentioned earlier, with the arms deals. And then the governor of Brazil's capital city, Brasilia, você fala português? They decreed a 24-hour lockdown for all essential services on Friday to try to curb the outbreak of COVID-19 that they say is starting to get to the maximum capacity of the wards in the hospitals. And an unusual fact this week, after the polar Arctic freeze, Texas now has a new emergency on their hands with an energy crisis. They have a cost of $50.6 billion in the energy bills, essentially, that some users are receiving, where the prior week for the energy was only $4.2 billion, and now they don't know how they're going to pay for it. Utilities are likely to pass the cost on to consumers in addition to taxpayers alike, and the Russian state-owned diamond producer called Alrosa, the world's largest producer of rough diamonds, is selling a 242-carat diamond about the size of an egg. And they're going to do it in an auction, in case you're interested, obviously, on March 22nd for $2 million. And this is actually really interesting. Seismologists at Caltech, working with Google optics experts, are stating that they developed a method to use the current underwater telecommunication cables to detect earthquakes. It's a technique that they actually use to improve earthquake and tsunami warnings around the world. And if you don't know, for example, the way that the internet works is we literally have huge undersea optic cables that run on the floor of the floor bed of the oceans. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe. Put all your questions with the hashtag AskMarcello. See you next week.